Eric Cantona is a name that sparks debate and admiration in equal measure. With his unique style and unpredictable genius, he revolutionized the game and brought a flair that left fans in awe. Known for his audacious goals and theatrical moments, he was as likely to dazzle with a brilliant strike as he was to stir up controversy. As we dive into his incredible journey, we'll score his skills, explore his maverick antics, and challenge your knowledge with quiz questions along the way. So, are you ready to discover what makes Cantona a true football icon? Stick around. His legacy is more surprising than you might think. Player introduction: Eric Cantona. This guy was no ordinary footballer. He was a force of nature with a rebellious spirit. Born in Marseille, France in 1966, Cantona came onto the football scene with the kind of swagger that made him unforgettable. He started his professional career in France, moving from Auxerre to Marseille, and eventually making his way to England. In the English leagues, Cantona found his true calling, joining Leeds United and helping them clinch the First Division title in 1992. But that was just the beginning. Cantona's real fame skyrocketed when he joined Manchester United later that year, becoming a key player in transforming the club into a dominant force in English football. Known as King Eric among United fans, Cantona brought both skill and charisma, winning 4 Premier League titles and 2 FA Cups. He wasn't just a goal scorer, he was a game changer. His creativity, leadership, and penchant for dramatic moments were unmatched, even if his on-field antics sometimes got him into trouble, like the time he famously kicked a heckler in the crowd. Controversial? Absolutely, but it only added to his legend. Off the field, Cantona embraced the limelight with a touch of philosophy and mystery. After retiring at just 30, he didn't just fade away. He pivoted to acting and still inspires fans and players alike with his enigmatic personality and boldness. Cantona was inducted into the National Football Museum Hall of Fame in 2002, celebrated for his contributions and unforgettable presence in football. Football ability. All right, let's talk about Eric Cantona's football ability, because calling it just football doesn't quite do him justice. Cantona wasn't just a player, he was more like an artist on the pitch. You never quite knew what he was going to do next, and that unpredictability made him a nightmare for defenders, but an absolute joy for fans. First, let's dive into his skill and style. Cantona had this unique blend of flair, vision, and power that made him stand out. He could turn a game on its head with a single touch. Just think about that iconic chip goal against Sunderland in 1996. He casually flicks the ball over the keeper, then stands there with that famous, almost royal-like pose, staring into the crowd as if to say, "Yes, I really am that good." Cantona's playing style wasn't just about scoring goals, it was about how he scored them. From quick flicks to daring volleys, his technique was top-notch, and his football IQ was even higher. He had a knack for creating something out of nothing, with the confidence to try moves that most players wouldn't dare. Even Sir Alex Ferguson credited Cantona as the catalyst for United's dominance, saying,
About Cantona, about his balance, his movement, his strength, and he was a threat to them all day.
A rare compliment from a manager who had seen it all. Now, let's talk achievements. Cantona joined Manchester United in 1992, and he didn't just play, he transformed the club. In his 5 seasons with United, he led the team to 4 Premier League titles and 2 FA Cups, setting the stage for their dominance in the 90s. Even Sir Alex Ferguson credited Cantona as a turning point for the club, calling him the catalyst that took United to the next level. So, what score does King Eric get for his football ability? I will give him 92 out of 100. While he wasn't the fastest player on the field, he didn't need to be. His skill and vision more than made up for it, and his influence on the game was undeniable. And now, here's a quick quiz for the true fans out there. In what year did Eric Cantona receive the PFA Players Player of the Year award? A. 1994, B. 1996, C. 1997, D. 1998. Think you know? Stick around till the end to find out if you got it right. Crazyness. Now, let's talk about Crazyness. And Eric Cantona, of course, practically wrote the book on that. So, January 1995, Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. The game itself, pretty uneventful, but then Cantona, who'd already been a bit rattled by constant fouling, decided to redefine fan interaction. After being red-carded, he walked off. But then, out of nowhere, he launched himself into the stands, studs first, aiming a perfect kung fu kick at a Crystal Palace fan who had shouted insults at him. It was part martial arts movie, part surreal football moment. And Eric, unapologetic as ever. The aftermath was almost as legendary as the incident itself. When reporters asked him what happened, Cantona replied with his famously cryptic line,
"When the seagulls follow the trawler, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea."
Poetic, right? Not quite the sorry most people were expecting. He was never afraid to speak his mind, often in ways that left people scratching their heads or laughing. Another unforgettable moment was during his appearance on The Jonathan Ross Show, years after his football career, where he talked openly about his passion for acting. Cantona's unpredictability didn't end there. In press conferences, he would often give answers that sounded like riddles. Some say he was a philosopher, others just plain hard to follow. The man had a talent for answering simple questions in the most confusing way possible. One minute, he'd be talking about football, and the next, he'd throw in lines about sardines or fish, like he was on a seafood-inspired TED Talk. I'm pretty sure his goal was to keep the journalists scratching their heads as much as possible. Was it deep? Was it nonsense? They'll never know. All right, for Cantona's unpredictability rating, it's got to be a solid 88 out of 100. From the kung fu kick to his bizarre one-liners, he was in a league of his own. In fact, if you could win trophies just for being unpredictable, Cantona would have an entire cabinet filled with them. Quiz time. Test your Cantona knowledge. What iconic item of clothing did Cantona make famous during his time at Manchester United? A. Leather gloves. B. A beret. C. Collar-up shirt. D. Headband. Drop your answer in the comments, and let's see how many of you are as enigmatic as the man himself. The dark arts. When it comes to the dark arts of football, Cantona was something of a Jedi master, except, with a much shorter fuse. He had this intensity and edge that set him apart. Sure, he was an artist with the ball, but when things got rough, he was absolutely prepared to get even rougher. Cantona was never just a finesse player. He was fearless, fiery, and if a defender got too close, he didn't mind sending them a little reminder of his physical side. Whether it was a sharp shoulder check or a tough tackle, he didn't shy away from a bit of grit. Cantona played with this "don't mess with me" attitude, almost like he was a boxer moonlighting as a footballer. It's no surprise that with all that fire came a collection of red cards and suspensions. Referees almost had his number on speed dial. Some would argue he just loved to live on the edge. During his time at Manchester United, he was known for heated clashes, a few unrepeatable words, and yes, a couple of accidental shoves that made sure no one questioned his toughness. There's a reason some people called him a warrior on the pitch. It was his way or the hard way. To give you an idea of his mindset, let's look at some of his interviews. In one memorable clip, Cantona once said, "I don't have to think, I just do." It perfectly captures his instinctive maverick approach to the game. In another interview, he shared, "I think it's important to be yourself and be true to yourself." This reinforces his rebellious spirit, both on and off the pitch. Think of it this way. When Cantona was around, you didn't need extra security. He was his own enforcer. For Cantona's sheer unpredictability, I'd give him a strong 75 out of 100 in the dark arts category. Was he a rule breaker? Not always, but he sure liked to get very close to that line, sometimes with both feet. Quiz time. How well do you know Cantona? So, here's a question to see if you're up to speed on Cantona trivia. Which team did he face when he received his first Premier League red card? A. Tottenham. B. Arsenal. C. Sheffield Wednesday. D. Chelsea. Drop your answers below and let's see who's got the Cantona knowledge. Likeability. When it comes to likability, Eric Cantona was a bit of an enigma, a guy who could be the bad boy and the fan favorite all at once. There was just something about his rebellious charisma I mean, the man basically invented the cool with a popped collar look, and somehow it worked. That collar-up stance was more than a fashion statement, it was his signature. When Cantona stepped on the field, you knew you were in for a show. Whether it was for his goals, his style, or his unapologetic attitude, fans couldn't get enough of him. Cantona wasn't just talented, he had this larger-than-life personality that drew people in. Sure, he was a bit unpredictable and occasionally let his temper get the best of him, but he also brought an intensity and flair that you couldn't help but watch. He seemed like the kind of guy who'd invite you out for coffee, but somehow turn it into a philosophical debate over existentialism by the end, and fans loved that. He was football's philosopher king, a guy who saw the game and life differently. Off the pitch, Cantona was a character who didn't shy away from the limelight. His sense of humor and enigmatic statements captivated audiences. One moment he'd be discussing philosophy, and the next, he'd be charming the crowd with his playful wit. In one interview, he famously quipped, "I am not a man, I am an idea." That statement sums up his larger-than-life presence in the sport. Cantona's appeal didn't stop when the final whistle blew. Off the pitch, he kept fans entertained with his cryptic interviews, witty one-liners, and even his ventures into acting. He became a cultural icon in France and beyond, showing up in films and charming audiences in a whole new way. And let's be honest, not every player can pull that off. After all, how many footballers can say they went from Premier League superstar to starring in French cinema? Not to mention those quirky press statements that left journalists and probably his manager scratching their heads. Cantona's likability, it's got to be up there, an easy 90 out of 100. He may not have been everyone's cup of tea, but the people who loved him really loved him. He was unforgettable, both for his talent and his personality, and he left a huge mark on football culture. Quiz time, test your Cantona knowledge. And now, here's a quick quiz for the true fans out there. How many goals did Eric Cantona score in the 1996 to 1997 Premier League season? A, 10, B, 15, C, 18, D, 25. Drop your answers in the comments, and let's see who's been paying attention. Football Mavericks Score. And now, the moment of truth. Eric Cantona's final Maverick Score. Our final verdict for King Eric. An 86 out of 100 on the Maverick scale. This man was a football genius, with a flair for the dramatic and a rebellious streak you could spot from the nosebleeds. He wasn't just a player, he was a show. He could dazzle with a flick of the ball or stun with a stare. Remember that famous collar-up look? Pure, untouchable swagger. Cantona was the guy who made fans scream, managers worry, and defenders, well, panic. Love him or hate him, Eric Cantona was truly one of a kind. You couldn't predict him, and football was way more fun because of it. And so, Football Mavericks salutes you, King Eric. And now, let's see those quiz answers. If you got them right, congratulations, you're officially part of the Cantona fan club. B, 1996. C, collar-up shirts. C, Arsenal. C, 18 goals. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through Cantona's career. Tell us who we should cover next in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single Maverick moment. Until next time, football fans,